everybody, this is Strategywizard again, and today I'm going to be doing a quick little review of Swords and Strongholds. It's actually Mouse Guard Swords and Strongholds. I think Mouse Guard may be another game, and this is based in that game, so to speak. It's I don't know all the details, but basically it's a little two-player abstract game. It's designed by Luke Crane and David Petersen, published by The Burning Wheel and Archaia. Two-player only, 15 to 30 minutes long, and ages 13 and up, they say. I feel like you might be able to go a little lower, but that's for you to decide if you think that that's... if you have any kids, it's up to you to decide if you think this is good for them. But I bought this game not really knowing... I had no idea to play it. I didn't really know much about it at all, other than the artwork and the basic theme. But what got me interested in it was two things. One, it's a two-player quick game, which is something that I thought would be perfect for me and my wife. But also, the theme itself, the medieval mouse theme, reminded me of a book series that I experienced as a child called Redwall, which was about a bunch of medieval mice. There's a castle called Redwall, I believe. There's a lot of adventures and combat and fighting, and I really, really liked it a lot. And, and this just gave me that feel, and I thought, you know what? All those things being said, it looks like it'll be worth taking a chance on at least. So, let's go to the table and see if I made a good decision based on my preconceptions. Okay, so here is the very simple setup for Swords and Strongholds. Both players are going to have 3 cards dealt to them, and you're going to be able to set up your pawns. You always have 4, of course. And you can set them up in the 2 rows that are closest to your side in any configuration you want. So in this case, black decided to put them all in the front, and white decided to have some in the front, some in the back. It's up to you how you want to distribute them. The goal of the game is to get one of your mice all the way to one of the back 2 corners and build a stronghold there. You will win immediately. Or capture all of your opponent's pawns. Now, black always goes first, and here's how you play. You start off by moving a pawn. Let's just say he moves this guy up here. He'll look at his hand, and he has, well, what do you know? He has 3 strongholds. So he only, if he wants to play a card, you don't have to, but if he wants to, he can play 1 card, never more than 1. And in this case, if he plays a stronghold, let's just go ahead and play it. You'll discard this over here. We'll make a little discard pile. He gets to move. You'll notice all the people or all the characters, the mice, are in the intersections, not in the squares. Well, whenever you build a stronghold, you do move from your intersection to any one of the squares around you. So now he moves into the middle square. He has a stronghold. The stronghold basically is invincible because nobody can move into those intersections anymore. My own mouse can't even move into that intersection there that's in that corner. He'd have to move around to get past. So strongholds are a great way to strengthen your defensive position. There is a way to pull someone out of a stronghold, and I'll show that in a second. But once you do that, you'll draw a card to replace what you played. Now it would be the gray or white mouse turn. They have a stronghold, and they have 2 diplomacy cards. Well, that's perfect. So let's just say he's going to play diplomacy. He has to move first. So let's just say he moves this guy here. Whenever you play diplomacy, the closest enemy mouse that is basically, the closest enemy mouse has to be swapped with you. Or if they're in a stronghold, you pull them out and you decide where they go. In this particular case, since he is the closest, I can pull him out and knock him over here, or maybe even back over here. So now, I've opened my path. He's out of the stronghold. If he doesn't have another one, maybe I'll be able to be free to keep on moving along back here to try to build my stronghold. So diplomacy is very powerful. If I was to play diplomacy now, I would be able to choose, basically, actually it'd be this guy. He's 1-2 squares away. Basically, the way you calculate it is you consider him in this square. He's considered in this square, so they're 2 squares away. He's 3 squares away by the same logic, 1, 2, 3. So in this case, if I was to play diplomacy now, we would swap places. And that's a great way to get your guys really far, really quick. But it also puts your opponent closer to you, so you need to be careful when you do that. So he played diplomacy, got him out of the stronghold, and he draws another stronghold. Okay, so now let's go back to black's turn. Let's see if he drew a sword. He did. Okay, this is the other card. There's only 3 different cards: strongholds, diplomacy, and swords. If you play a sword, let's go ahead and see if we can do a good example here. Let's say I move here. Then I can play my sword. My sword would allow me to move basically in an L shape, one space in two directions. I can go forward and then over. I can go over and then forward. I can even go backwards, and I can even push people. I could push my buddy back and move back here. If I was up here, I could push him and then move over. But here's the most important part about what a sword does. If, let's just say I was here. No, we'll do even better. Let's say I was right here. If I used my sword now, I could move up and then over, and I could push this mouse off the edge. If you do, you capture that mouse. Now, that's the other way to win. If you can use swords to capture your opponents. And that's, honestly, the sword is one of the most fun cards to use because it's aggressive, it's powerful, and it helps you move across the board quicker. So you want to have a lot of swords if possible. However, if somebody is in a stronghold and you use a sword, you cannot get through a stronghold. So if I used it and I wanted to keep, I'd have to come around like this with my sword because the stronghold is invincible apart from diplomacy. Now, that being said, you can also capture, let's say this mouse was here. This person's in a stronghold. If I use my sword at this point, let's say I already moved, then I use my sword, I can push this mouse here, then come over. This mouse would get captured because it got pushed into a stronghold where it can't go. So basically, strongholds are great for your defense, but you also need to be careful and make sure no one is going to come and capture a pawn using one of your strongholds. Now, if you want to get out of your own stronghold on your turn, you can choose to get out by taking your pawn and move it to any one of the four intersections and move it one space. And once you do that, your turn's over. You do not get to play a card. So you can get out of your own strongholds if you ever need to, if you see that someone's going to use them to their advantage. Now, if you ever use a sword and you push, let's say there's two people here. I moved here, used a sword, I want to go over and then forward. I would not capture in this case. I would actually just push both of these pawns along the way. Of course, if I was able to push again like this, I would capture one of them because it would push them off the edge. So there's different ways you have to think about the layout of the board. There's different times where you can accomplish a lot of pushing, capturing, using strongholds. Here's the other thing. If he used a stronghold now, he could push this guy backwards. You can't capture with a stronghold. I can't do this and move him here. Always, if possible, you have to move your opponent whenever you build a stronghold backwards towards their area. And if you do so, let's just say he's right here. Let's say I build a stronghold here. I have to move him this way. But if, let's just say there was something that kept that from happening, or even better yet, let's say I was here and built a stronghold here. I can't move him backwards because he'll still be in my stronghold area, but he can move sideways. You have to move him sideways if you can't move them backwards. If for some reason the only legal move would be to move them towards your side, you can't build a stronghold there. It's impossible to do that. But apart from that, that really is the gist of how to play this game. You're using diplomacy to try to either pull people out of strongholds or switch places with them. You use the swords to try to advance quickly and capture opponents' pieces, and you use strongholds to build a strong defense. And that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and go up, and I will tell you what I think. Okay, so now that you know how to play, I'll just say this. Swords and Strongholds, it pretty much did what I was hoping it would do. In fact, it maybe even exceeded my expectations. However, component quality, I do have two little issues. One of them is there is an insert, which is nice. This insert holds your pieces and the cards and everything because you have a little card holder here that goes inside. This thing just, trying to put it inside the box, I mean, it's a pretty tight fit, and trying to get it back out it's just gonna, I feel like, wear out the corners on the inside a good bit. In fact, I can already see that it has kind of torn a little bit of the inside of the cardboard box. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but in case you can, I'll show it to you. But it's just way tight, to put it quite simply. You put the board in the bottom, actually. Put the board in the bottom of the box, and then this goes on top of it. Very tight fit. And the actual deck, the actual card box is also super duper tight. So actually getting the cards in here, it looks great. I mean, I have no complaints there, but it's just so tight. And trying to get the cards out or even get them back in and get the little thing to fold down without pushing into the cards, a little challenging. So that's my main component complaint. Apart from that, I like the pieces. The pieces are great, and you know they're made of plastic, but they look really good. They look like carved wood, which I think is cool. So you know, I'm happy with the artwork. I'm happy with the cards. They're not linen finished, but they're good quality. So no real complaints as far as the functionality and everything. As far as the replayability, I think for a 2-player abstract game that's this quick, there's plenty of replayability because the cards as they come up and how you use those cards to maneuver around on the board. I think there's enough different ways and strategies, and not only that, but you're constantly adapting as the game state changes. So I feel like it kind of makes me think of Onitama in a sense, I suppose, even though there's a lot of information and there's not a lot of space to move around. You still feel like there's interesting things going on, and you're adapting to the situation and trying to, you know, predict what your opponent might do. That keeps the replayability alive for me. We've played it quite a few times, and I'm still enjoying it. As far as the strategic level, the only luck here is the cards you draw. Now, there are times where you'll get 3 of the same thing, which limits what cards you can play. If you have 3 strongholds, that really limits you on you can't capture your opponent, or you can't use diplomacy to try to, you know, swap places and move farther ahead. But even though it limits you, you can still use the cards you have to your advantage. You can start putting up a lot of strongholds to block your opponent, because they might, if you have a lot of strongholds, they might have a lot of swords, and you can use your strongholds to protect yourself. So even though there is that element of luck that could be somewhat extreme, because you have 3 of the same card, that's not usually a good thing, but you can use that to your advantage in a lot of ways. Now, if you had 3 diplomacy, that might be a little harder to really make work, but at the same time, if you have 3 diplomacy and your opponent plays a lot of strongholds, you can start pulling them out of those so you can work your way through to the back to build your stronghold in the corner. So really, I feel like the strategic level is a lot higher than the luck in this game. There's a little bit of luck, but most of the time, you're making choices that make a big difference. Almost every turn that you make a move, it matters. So I'm very pleased with that, how little luck really plays a factor in this game. So that being said, this game is an easy 8 for me. I mean, I think that it's definitely a recommend it. It's very light, and yet there's depth that surprised me. I mean, whenever I see the tiny little board, I think, man, how much can you really do here? But whenever you start playing and you see how the cards work and how little space you have and yet the cool things that you can do, very impressive. It's one that I'm very happy to have in my collection. So all I can say is, you know, if you like the abstractness of the board and everything, because it is very abstract, if you can get on board with that, and you are looking for a good 2-player game that actually has just a little bit of luck, but still a lot of strategy to be able to make some cool moves, I think this is the game for you. So, I hope you enjoyed the video, the review, and if you did, give me a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, subscribe, and you'll be able to see more videos that I'll be posting soon, and in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you all on the next one. So take care, everybody. Bye.